Alright guys, so after that I now have two questions. One, where was that all season? And two, how the hell do we top that in the season finale? Hey guys, Kendra for Legends Tomorrow, Season 1, Episode 15, Destiny, and holy shit what an episode this was. I mean, I didn't think it was possible to top it after Leviathan. I really didn't. I mean, that episode really was just incredible. It felt like a movie. It was really awesome. And this episode, I think, was even better than that. I loved everything about this episode. I think this is the best episode we've had so far, without a doubt. There are so many great things about this episode. First of all, this episode did, Leviathan didn't. Leviathan made some of the arcs better that weren't working, while this episode completely axed everything that wasn't working and only focused on what we want to see. If you guys noticed, there was barely any Savage in this episode, barely any Kendra, and I didn't really care at all, because those plots haven't exactly been working for me. No, I don't think Savage is as bad as everyone's been saying, and no, I don't think Kendra is as bad as everyone's been saying. There's just a lot of missed potential in both of those arcs, and especially since next week is the finale, I don't really know, we're going to focus on them a lot more, so it made sense for us to focus on what we need to in this episode. This episode was just incredible, though. I love the way this episode was done. This episode was emotional, it was funny at times, it was heart-wrenching. I mean, there was so much great stuff about this episode, especially the ending, which I know you guys definitely want me to talk about, and it didn't, like I said, didn't even focus on Savage. It focused more on the Time Masters and their whole conflict, but let's just get into this episode, and right away I want to talk about the first scene, because it was really cool the way it was done. I think one of the best parts of this entire episode, honestly, was the beginning, because right away it really shows us how far all these characters have come when we go all the way back to the first scene of Rip showing his recruits an image of the future after Savage has conquered the world. He hopes it won't let him in the world down. He then gives them an address to meet them if their answer is yes, and once the team is alone, we see that Len says he just isn't interested in saving the world. Now, if I remember correctly, I don't think we saw this. Maybe we did, maybe we didn't, but basically, he leaves with Mick, and Jack says that he's not going to sign on just to die in the future. Stein goes after him and tells Jax he has confidence that they can save the world. And if you remember, this is how the show started, with them all unsure if they actually want to conquer this mission. He has Jax to come to his office tomorrow if he changes his mind, but Jax says that he won't, and once Jax walks off, we see the Jax from the future, or, present Jax, and he comes in and tells Stein that he needs his help because the team is in trouble, and right away, I think it just shows how far we've come, how close the team has really gotten, and really shows how much Jax has changed. I mean, if you guys remember, I initially was not a huge fan of Jax. I thought he was whiny, I thought he was annoying, and this episode really shows how far that character has come. He's come from just a regular college teenager to really a heroic figure that really wants to conquer the world and really wants to do something significant in his life, and I think that's one of the best parts of this episode, without a doubt. Perfect way to start the episode, and really just set the tone for how great the rest of the episode was. So then we get to where most of this episode takes place, which is inside the Vanishing Point, and really things get crazy right away. We see in his cell, Stein is slowly dying because he can't merge with Jax, and as we know, if he can't merge, then he's gonna die, and that's really one of the reasons why he's Firestorm. You need one half to complete the other half, and Stein obviously isn't getting what he needs from Jax, and therefore he's dying because of it, and he wonders why the Time Masters are keeping them alive, because they should just kill them. I mean, the Time Masters really don't trust them, they should just kill them, and Mick says that they'll all be dead soon. And as for Mick, they'll try to brainwash him to Chronos again, and he only kept his sanity the first time because he focused on how much he hated the team. And Time Master guards come in and take Mick out, and you really do see Mick suffer throughout this entire episode. It really is hard to watch, especially the scene where the Time Masters are taking him out, because you don't know really what they're going to do, if they're going to try to get him on his side, if they're going to try to kill him. And as they remove Kendra as well, she fights free momentarily, but a guard stuns her, and they drag her away, and luckily that's one of only two scenes we get with Kendra in this episode. And again, I haven't hated Kendra this season by any means. She just hasn't really been working. She hasn't been nearly as compelling as she could be, and I think it was good that we kept Kendra away for a little bit, because we've had so many episodes this season, and so much this season focuses on Kendra, so much in the show in general focuses on Kendra. I thought it was good that we barely focused on her in this episode. So guards take Rip to Druce, who orders the guard away, and right away we already have even more threatening than a villain than Savage, without a doubt. It's not that Savage isn't threatening, it's just all the buildup we've had of him all season has never really lived up to its potential that they've done with him. He's remained very one-dimensional, and if anything, he just has been there to basically just be this tyrannical figure, and Druce is already a lot more powerful, because we see guards take Rip to Druce, who orders the guards away, and once they're alone, Rip asks his mentor why the Time Masters didn't kill the team when they had the chance, and Druce asks where Sarah and Len are, and Rip refuses to answer, and you really saw Rip as that heroic figure that that we need to see all season. The older Time Master explains that in 2175, Earth is attacked by a warlike race of aliens from Thanagar, and without Savage to unite Earth under one rule, the Thanagars lay waste to the planet, and Rip insists that Savage isn't the world's only hope, and Druce tells him that they've checked the timeline and there is no other hope. And he has one more thing to show Rip to convince him. What I love about Druce the most, though, in this scene, I think, is that he's not necessarily just a villain. He believes in Savage to really be the leader of the world, and Rip's trying to convince him that it totally is the wrong way to go. But in Druce, there really is no other hope besides Rip, and besides Savage, I mean, and I think it's a very good characterization and really does show why Druce is just as threatening, maybe even more threatening than Savage is. Remember, Savage has this giant army, and Druce is just a member of that, and I think it really adds to this episode, and I really did enjoy that. Without a doubt, though, some of the best things we've had this entire season has been between Sarah and Len. We've seen these two work perfectly together. Really, they work well with anyone because Katie Lutz and Wentworth Miller are just such great actors and actresses. But this, by far, was one of the best pairings we've had all season, and I love the scenes we got here with Len and Sarah, especially with Len not knowing if he really should save his friend, but he wants to. We see they emerge from hiding. Len is ready to leave, but Sarah refuses to abandon her friend. She points out that they're surrounded by time ships, and Len draws on his gun. Sarah tells him not to act like the cold-hearted bastard who told her to kill Stein, because if you remember, he told her straight out not to kill Stein, and Len says that she seemed to have a problem with being a killer, but she doesn't, and this is one of the reasons I love this episode so much, because it references the most of the rest of this season, and really why certain events have happened, which I thought was a really well-done way to do it. Sarah tells him to prove it and shoot her, and an old-fashioned phone on Rip's desk, and Sarah answers it as Len lowers his gun. It's Gideon, who says that she moved her operating system to a Lancy core when the Time Masters tried to wipe it, and already this is a lot more simpler. If you remember last week, Gideon just suddenly stopped, and I was very confused what was going on here, but now we see that Gideon is now on a telephone, and I think that's actually a really clever idea what they did there. The AI tells Sarah where the team is and warns that they're only alive for the moment, and I thought that was a really good scene. I definitely enjoyed that. Kendra then wakes up aboard a jump ship with Savage. She's strapped to a chair. Savage explains the Time Masters gave him the jump ship. Carter is in stasis in the cargo hold, and he's taking them to an appointment that he has with Destiny. And like I said, they're really not the focus of this episode. The only reason I think we had these scenes was to set up for the finale. We see Kendra is captured. She is stuck with Savage, and I think she's going to stay there till next week's episode, of course, the finale. We'll have to see what happens with that, but I thought it really added to this episode because, like I said, we don't need Savage to be in every episode, and this is a perfect example of that. So D-Clan prepares to brainwash the strapped-down Mick. He explains that they've made some refinements. Once they're finished, Chronos will be feared throughout history. And D-Clan begins a procedure, and it's clear they want Mick to be this, really intimidating version of Chronos. They want Chronos to take down the Legends. That's what they've wanted to do all season. They still want him to be just as strong. They want him to be just as tough, and you can tell that Mick really doesn't want this to happen. He doesn't want to be brainwashed. He doesn't want to turn against them. He turned against them before, but he doesn't want to now, and he really wanted to prove his allegiance to them, which he has, and he doesn't want to beat Chronos again. It's really sad to watch at times. I think they definitely did a very good job with that, and us being just as not scared is the word, but definitely just as feared. And then we get this crazy twist that just comes out of nowhere that I think really added to why I love this episode so much. All season long, we have been promised all these really cool missions and all these really cool places they could go, but it's always been very underwhelming, and it's always felt like we haven't really gotten what we needed out of those missions, and this scene perfectly explains why this was. Now, this is a way to do it, definitely. When you have a scene that's not working, you try and make an explanation. As crazy as this is, it actually, I think, does work, because Druce takes Rip to the Oculus viewing chamber, the Time Master source, for all the information on the timeline, and we find that the Oculus gives them ability to shape the timeline. Druce explains that they've been helping Savage gain time travel, and once they realize that only Savage can save the world, they've been using the Oculus to manipulate Rip. So we find out every single action has been because of the Time Masters, and everything the team has done has benefited Savage, providing the outcome that history requires. And Drew shows Rip the timeline, past and future. The Elder Time Master says that there's no free will except at the vanishing point. Rip steps back. He can't actually believe that this is actually happening, that they've actually done this, and Drew says that what Rip saw will happen. The Time Masters counted on Rip's anger and his going rogue, and they ordered Savage to kill his family to provide the necessary impetus and layer the guards. They lock Rip up next to the others, and he explains the Time Masters show him the truth, and everything they've done was orchestrated by his superiors, and this really is just crazy. But like I said, it really just makes sense, especially that scene in before when we saw how much Drews worships Savage. Now they see him as this godlike figure. They don't see him as like a Hitler, who he really is. They see him as like a godlike figure, and in many ways, it's kind of how people saw Hitler, is that anyone that allied with Hitler, they're basically forced to see him that way. Now, I'm not trying to compare Savage to Hitler. I think there's just a lot of comparisons there. What I really loved about this, though, is that it really does make sense why all these things have been very underwhelming. And really, I can understand if someone says, oh, this is very far-fetched and just feels very on the nose, but I think it works really well here. I think it really does make sense, and especially because he doesn't really believe it at first. Ray doesn't believe Rip at first, and Rip says that he saw the timeline and Ray's death, and basically they have to find a way to get rid of this oculus, but the oculus really adds this really cool parts of the show that really shows that I don't think Savage was ever the real villain this season. I think the real villain was the Time Masters. They're the ones that fucked up everything. They're the ones that messed with the timeline, and they're the ones that made Rip and the team get into the situation that they did. That's why every single mission has been a bust. That's why they haven't really been able to solve everything. It's all been because of the Time Masters, and it really adds to why things this season have gone the way they do. And like I said, as far-fetched and crazy as it is, I think it really does work because you see how much the Time Masters trust Savage. And because that, I think it makes the Time Masters just as threatening and even more intimidating than Savage ever has been and ever will be. So back in Central City, we see Jax tells Stein the team is in some kind of trouble. He refused to give Stein greater knowledge of the future. Just as Stein burns out some equipment, Jax says that he forgot how arrogant Stein was, and Stein wonders why he's referring to him in the past tense, and of course that's because Stein's not that arrogant anymore. You know, if you remember how this started out, Stein was persistent. It was his way or no way at all, and now they've really come to this balance where Stein really does care, and Jax says that Stein doesn't die, tells Stein to help him reroute the temporal buffer, and Stein reluctantly goes back to work. You can tell he doesn't want to, but the way that Jax basically is forced to get him to help, I thought was really cool, and the transitions between these two, it never felt too awkward either. I thought they worked really well. I definitely really like that. We then see D-Clan apologize to Mick for the pain of the induction procedure, force him to say his name, Kronos, and the guards release Mick, and Mick does not want to say that he's Kronos, but he's basically forced to say who he fears and who he hates, and he dons the Kronos armor. D-Clan tells him to start his duties by hunting down Len and Sarah, and it really is very sad to watch. You can tell again that Mick really doesn't want to do this, but he's forced to, because if he doesn't, he knows what could happen to him, and he doesn't really want to be Kronos, but they're forcing him to be. So in the hangar, Len and Sarah follow Gideon's instructions. They put devices on the other ships. Stein points out to Ray that he's about to die, and Mick is being brainwashed, and Ray refuses to accept that their future's already written. He wants to believe that this isn't actually going to happen, that there's a way they can change this, and he says that Rip and Stein are both quitters. He reminds them that Sarah and Len are on the loose, and they still have a chance, and that's one of the things I loved about this episode, is that reminds us that Stein and Ray are very, very smart, and I think they haven't really used that to their advantage this season. They've made a lot of really dumb decisions, but now it's made sense because the Time Masters controlled a lot of it, and now that Ray knows why this is all happening, he wants to change it in any way he can, and I love seeing that. It really just shows how Ray really is the hero of the show, and it's not that Rip isn't. Rip, I feel, just thinks this is set in stone, that there really isn't a way that can change it, while Ray is destined to find a way to change it, and that's something I really did love here. It really just showed that really great contrast between Ray and Rip that I've loved all season. Rip is more a beaten down hero, while Ray really is that hero that perseveres. He really is trying to conquer things. He wants to do something impactful, and this is how he continues to be that hero. If you remember, Savage told him to be that hero and that he hasn't really done much of anything. We know his fight with the Leviathan, and this was very reminiscent of that. If anything, though, I think it was even more heroic than what he did with the Leviathan, because he had the entire team together, and he really was the one that got the team to realize that this isn't the end. I really loved that. I thought that was really great, and then we get this really great scene between Sarah and Len, where they wait for Gideon to finish bringing the time drive online. Sarah notices that he's wearing a ring, and Len explains it's from the first job that he pulled with Mick, and if you remember, he had this ring. We never really knew what it was, this pinky ring, but they finally make notice of it here. It's a reminder that even the best laid plans can go sideways, and we realized that it wasn't because Len was married or anything. It was because it was from the first job he pulled couple with Mick, which I thought was really cool. And it's a reminder that even the best laid plans can go sideways. Gideon finishes its work, and Sarah time jumps Wave Rider, and Drews then gets word that Wave Rider is escaping, orders the other ships to pursue. The devices go out, overriding the ship's AIs and shutting down the time ships, which that was awesome. I love the way that Song just shut it down completely as a way to distract them. Drews then confronts Rip, tells him that with the others gone, he's lost any reason to keep them alive, and he is willing to just kill all of them at this point because they've ruined their entire thing. And he tells the guards to kill the prisoners, starting with Rip. The guard says that Wave Rider is headed for the present, and just as Sarah opens fire on the vanishing point, and we see that Cold enters the brig. He takes out Drews, and Kronos arrive with D-Clan. D-Clan orders Kronos to fire. Cold tells his friend to put the gun down, and after a moment, Kronos shoots D-Clan, removes his helmet as D-Clan lies on the ground. Mick crushes his skull with his boots, and this really shows why I love the dynamic between Len and Mick so much, really is in this scene. I think really out of all the characters, Len is the one that has developed the most. If you remember in the beginning of this season, he wanted nothing to do with being a hero. He wanted to be a villain, even though we know that he did have some good in him. In this entire season, he's realized that. In this episode, he really finally becomes that hero that he's always, I think, wanted to be. Destiny, I think, really, the title of the episode really refers to Len becoming this hero because he was the one that was able to save his friend. He completely saved Mick from being Kronos. He doesn't need to be Kronos, and from here they go to Wave Rider. Len takes Stein to the med bay. Gideon tells Rip that they have a slight problem just as the Time Masters lock onto the ship with a tractor beam. Sarah orders Gideon to prepare to jump while Rip and Ray try to override the tractor beam. Ray used the operating system in Kronos' armor to send the override from alternate source, and the tractor beam disintegrates, and it just disengages, and just the way that Len was able to stop most of this. The way that, like I said, I think Ray and Len, they really were the two real heroes of this episode. I think they really show that here, and I really appreciate that. Some really great stuff for both of those characters in this episode, and I think they used them really to their full potential. This was a very character-driven episode, and little moments like this are reasons why I think this show can be as great as it is when it uses these characters to its full potential. So back in the past, we see Jax and Stein finish repowering the jump ship. Stein says goodbye to the future version of his friend, apologizes for being an insufferable know-it-all. Jax says that he understands that Stein's just looking out for him, tells Stein that he will eventually gets over Stein drugging his past self, which I like that they made fun of this because it obviously wasn't really funny when it first happened. It was honestly pretty crazy he did that, but he offers to tell Stein the future. Stein says that he knows something must have gone right on the adventure because of what Jax has become, because he never thought that Jax would become this hero. He always thought that Jax was going to be this stuck-up dick, and obviously he's not like that anymore, and you can tell that Stein really is surprised by the transformation in him. So Lem returns to the bridge, and Rip explains about the oculus and how the Time Masters manipulate them. He figures that Ray's death isn't part of their plan, but anything they do might be what the Time Masters want. Ray says they need to destroy the oculus, and that's basically what they're set out to do. They need to destroy this oculus because they can't just keep having the Time Masters control what happens to them. They want to be able to control their own destiny, and Rip confirms that it doesn't work in the Vanishing Point. Everyone agrees, and Rip has Gideon plot a course to the Oculus wellspring, and later So then Mick brings up a really good point that even though they might try to destroy the Oculus, that does not mean that Ray's death might still happen, which honestly isn't too far-fetched because of the fact that they've already said that Legends of Tomorrow Season 2 is going to have a completely new storyline, completely new characters. So there is that possibility that Ray might die next week, and that really, I think, kind of scares us because I don't want Ray to die. Obviously, I want to be able to fulfill his destiny, but Mick saying that, it might actually happen, and Ray wonders how Mick resisted the brainwashing the second time, and Mick says that he focused on the team this time and how screwed they'd be without him. He tells Ray that he can survive anything the Time Masters throw him, grabs some fast food, and leaves. And if you remember, the only reason that Mick really, didn't resist the brainwash and actually just accepted it and was completely fine with it was because he really felt that he wasn't needed in the team. He didn't feel like he was part of it. He didn't feel like he belonged. He felt like a villain. And I think really the thing that's made him feel more powerful is Len. Len is the one that has showed him who he could really be. Len is the one who showed him that he is a lot more than just some supervillain, and he doesn't just have to be this crime, this guy that just commits a bunch of crimes. He can stop crime. He can do a lot more than he thinks, and I think it really does show here. So Len checks in on Sarah, offers a game of cards. When she refuses, he offers to apologize for pulling a gun on her. Len wonders what she thinks of Rip's plan, and Sarah points out that everything they've considered has been scripted for them. She still feels responsible for everything that she's done, and Len says that it's things that he hasn't done that keeps him up, and wonders about a future for the two of them. Sarah tells him that if he wants to steal a kiss, he better be one hell of a thief, and walks out. And it's just a really great scene because it really does show that he really does want to start something with her. But I like that she's saying, look, if you actually want to be with me, you got to choose. Are you a hero? You're a villain. You got to choose who you want to be. And I thought that was a really great scene there. So Stein then visits Rip in Rip's office, admits that learning that what he's done is predetermined is liberating. He's determined that they have a chance destroying the Oculus, and Wave Rider arrives at the Oculus wellspring, and Stein explains the scaled-down supernova that powers the Oculus at the bottom of the wellspring. What I love about this is that Rip is the only one that feels it's impossible to destroy the Oculus. He feels that this is set in stone, that they can't change time, and Adam will destroy the contained supernova, causing an explosion. The time ship arrives, the team heads out. Druce and the other guards are waiting, and the Time Master says the team coming there is Destiny. He orders his guards to kill the team. Jax arrives in the jump ship, opens fire on the guards. Once they're down, Jax emerges, and Stein assures him that he's right on time. They merge in the firestorm. They head to the wellspring, and it was awesome to see Jax, especially that conversation he had with Stein. It really just showed that he's more ready to be part of Firestorm, and obviously Stein wasn't going to die. The team enters the structure. Adam approaches the contained supernova. He works on activating the self-destruct while the others guard the entrance to buy him the time, and Savage's time ship arrives. He prepares to leave. Kendra begs him not to kill Rip's family, and Savage says it's already been done, and she's not going to stop him. He's not going to let her stop him. He joins his men, looks for Rip's family, and again, we didn't get a whole lot with Savage, but we just need it because, again, it's setting up things for the finale, so we definitely need to see that there. But then we get a really awesome fight scene that I can't wait to talk about because it was just awesome. Prior to this episode, the only fight scene that worked for me that didn't feel completely underwhelming, well, one of them at least, was of course Rip's fight with the Leviathan. It was just a powerful scene of heroicness and Rip wanting to do, Brave wanting to fight this Leviathan, everything. That scene was incredible, but this scene was even better because finally the team gets to control their own destiny. They don't have anyone writing it for them. There is no script here. They get to do whatever they want, and we see Firestorm, Cold, and White Canary. They fight the arriving reinforcements. Meanwhile, Adam brings the self-destruct and says that once he's done, they have 2 minutes to escape. Ray removes his gauntlets and helmets for the fine work, and Rip realizes that his vision for the Oculus is coming true, and he warns Ray that's how he dies. Ray says it doesn't matter because he's always wanted to make a difference, and yes, that is true. The reason Ray's done this is because he's wanted to do something impactful and be this hero, and creating a future for them without the Time Master's influence counts, and if he dies because of it, he doesn't care, as long as they get to change this from happening. The guards pour in, Heatwave and Rip open fire, a stray shot knocks Rip down, Heatwave pulls him back from the edge and insists that he's not doing it because he likes Rip, and a failsafe activates within the core, and Ray tells the others that he has to maintain contact with the failsafe to blow up the Oculus, and Savage then finds Rip's family. His men kill Miranda. Of course, they do kill Rip's wife, which is very devastating to watch. Just knowing that he actually couldn't stop him from doing that was very sad to see. But then we see Rip refuses to abandon Ray. Ray points out that Rip has already seen the future, and he's dead, and there is no way to change that, and realizing what he has to do, Heatwave knocks Ray out, holds down the failsafe, tells Rip that he wants revenge on the Time Masters. Rip shrinks Ray down, reluctantly leaves, and it's this really great scene because you can tell that they're not going to let this stop them, and Savage then asks Jonas if he's brave or foolish, and Jonas spits in his face. You don't know if Savage is going to kill Ray's son or not, Rip's son or not, but you think he's going to. So Rip tells the others that they're leaving. When So while this scene was awesome, it was awesome for a few reasons. One, like I said, the entire team is finally getting in control what they want to do, and not let anyone rewrite this history for them and, write it for, basically, fulfill it by someone else, like the Time Masters. They get to control it on their own. We finally get a scene that we've been wanting all season. We see Rip tells the others that they're leaving. Cold asks where Heatwave is. Rip explains what he's doing. Cold and White Canary go to get him. They blast away the containment device. Heatwave tells him to get out. Cold refuses to abandon his friend, knocks Heatwave out. He tells White Canary to get Heatwave out, and she finally kisses Cold before going, and I really saw this as her finally doing this because of the fact that he now knows who he is. He's no longer in the middle. He's like, am I a hero or am I a villain? He now knows that he's a hero. He's going to be a hero, and he's going to make sure that he stays a hero as long as he lives. And now that he knows who he is, Sarah finally kisses him. I thought it was a very well-deserved scene. I really love that. But then we see Savage. He tells Jonas that he's foolish, and he does kill him, and it's just devastating knowing that Savage killed Rip's family, knowing there's nothing Rip could do about it. I mean, again, this is history that's written, and you're wondering, is there a way to possibly change this? Is there a way to stop Savage from doing such a thing? It's very interesting. So Drews then tells Cat's Cold to shut down the failsafe, and we get this scene that really I think we kind of all saw coming, which is in this next scene. It really is crazy. But Cold says there are no strings to him. The core explodes. Wave Rider's sword clears. The vanishing point is consumed by the explosion, and Len is dead. Len is now dead. It is crazy to see that Len is actually dead, but it makes sense. He wanted to be a hero, and he finally proved that he was a hero. How? By killing him, by letting himself die. He sacrificed himself to show that he was a hero, and that's why he finally got that kiss with Sarah. And it's sad to see that obviously this had to happen because of the fact that he basically, fix this on his own, but they did in fact destroy the Vanishing Point. The Vanishing Point is gone. They have destroyed the Oculus. I was surprised they actually did, but it really does put us in a new direction for the show, and I really love the way that that was done. So while it was very sad to obviously lose Len, that's not the end of the episode, because we see after this, we see, and in the hold, Rip sits alone. He has Game for Report in the timeline. There's no data because the Oculus destruction, and the AI reviews news accounts for 2166. Gideon reports that Savage has killed Miranda and Jonas, and it's very sad to see, knowing that, they're dead, and obviously, I think Rip knew this was going to happen. I think he knows at this point that he's not going to be able to change it. And as Mick looks at Len's ring, Ray joins him. Mick says that he wants to be alone, but Ray tells him that Gideon has confirmed the Oculus is destroyed. They now have free will, and Len didn't die for nothing. He died because he wanted to save all of them. They understood that, and Mick shouldn't get so down himself for it. He shouldn't be too upset. He should understand why he did this, and Mick explains that Len put the ring on him, and he still feels like killing someone for his friend. Ray reminds him that Savage still has Carter and Kendra, and Mick says that Savage will do nicely, and they will definitely take down Savage. They will rescue Carter and Kendra, and it really shows that this is far from the end. They still have stuff to do, and they're not done yet. They need to move forward and do those things, and we get to that right here, which it perfectly sets up the finale. We see Savage returns to the jump ship. He tries to contact Druce. The council informs that Druce said it's dead, and they've lost the ability to manipulate time, which is awesome because now they can control their own future. There's no more of this bullshitting it. They can't help Savage any longer. Without the Oculus, time will no longer unfold as they anticipated. Kendra laughs, tells Savage that his friends have cut him loose, wonders how long he can hold on to his power without the Time Masters. Savage says that with the jump ship, he now has the ability to change the world. With that, he pilots the ship into the time stream, and that is how the episode ends, which really this has made a problem for Savage, but that's how this episode ends, and now let's get to this episode overall. So overall, guys, I think a really satisfying episode. First of all, I think, honestly, Len's death was very satisfying. They already confirmed that Len is not gone forever. They already said that he's going to be on The Flash again. He's going to be on Legends Tomorrow again. But he is going to be recurring. And honestly, I think it does make sense. Now that Len's character, his arc is over. He now knows who he is. He knows he's a hero. We're no longer in that plot line where he's wondering if he's a hero or a villain. And honestly, I think it's a very satisfying end for his character. He now knows that he is a hero. He's going to be a hero. And it would make sense that he's going to be on The Flash or go on Arrow. Like, when they need help, he'll go on to help them, which I'm definitely looking forward to seeing. But now things really, this whole, Oculus really is backfired for them because it's made Savage even more powerful. Savage no longer has anyone doing things for him. He can do things all on his own. He can do whatever he wants, and who knows really what he's going to do. Now that he's killed Rip's family, I don't know what's going to happen. We'll have to see what happens with that. That's going to be very interesting. I love the dynamic between Stein and Jackson's episode. Thought that was really great. Definitely really good stuff there. Ray's death. I mean, like Rip said that, Ray is going to die eventually, and even Mick even said that you might die. Is Ray possibly going to die next week? Like I said, a lot of the characters from this season are not going to be on next season. I think Kendra and Carter are still going to be on just because you kind of need them there, but I'm pretty sure that Mick, Ray, Sarah, Rip, Ray, they're not going to be there next season. I feel like Stein, maybe even Jax, they might not be there. I definitely feel we're going to have a new team next season. We'll have to see what happens with that, but how is that going to work overall? I'm definitely looking forward to seeing their final fight with Savage. That's going to be very interesting as well. I'm wondering where they are going to go next week. I think they're going into space, which is going to be very interesting to see how that all turns out. It looks like that final fight is going to be very satisfying. I really hope that works. But my real question is, how did they top this episode? I don't really think they can. As great as next episode might be, I don't know if it's going to top this episode. This episode was just fantastic because it finally showed us why things have been the way they are. It showed these characters this is a far from over mission. It finally completed some really good arcs, especially for Jax and for Len, which I really did love seeing. And I'm not at all upset that Len died. Wentworth Miller was a great actor, but it made sense that he had to die. He needed to prove that he was a hero, and the only way that he could do that was to die a hero. He wanted to die a hero. He wanted to do what his father couldn't, be that hero that he always wanted, that he always thought he could be, but he always didn't know if he actually could end up being, and Finally he has, and I'm looking forward to seeing if Len returns, what's gonna happen between him and Sarah, because obviously Sarah and him finally got that kiss that we were hoping they get. But overall, guys, how much you guys saw this episode, love your thoughts. Now, I absolutely love this episode, amazing stuff overall. I cannot wait for next week's episode, and I will see you guys next year, which will be for the path, and I will see you guys for that. Okay, bye.